In 1872, a ship was found drifting in the Atlantic Ocean.
It was completely abandoned and undamaged.
Her name was the Mary Celeste. 10 people were on board, including a captain, his wife and their 2-year-old daughter.
They were never seen again.
When the crew of the Dei Gratia boarded her, they found food in the galley, clothes neatly folded, the cargo untouched.
But the lifeboat was gone.
No signs of a struggle or storm damage.
What would make an experienced captain abandon a perfectly safe ship?
And what happened in those final 10 days? This is the true story of the Mary Celeste, well known in history as the ghost ship, the Mary Celeste. On the 4th of December 1872, the Canadian brigantine Dei Gratia saw a vessel behaving strangely on the Atlantic Ocean. She had drifted roughly 400 nautical miles east of the Azores. Captain David Morehouse, a seasoned mariner, spotted something on the horizon. He knew instantly something was wrong. He could see a ship being blown sideways by the breeze. Her course was erratic. As the 2 ships drifted closer together, his instinct was confirmed. He could see there was no crew on deck. The ship was just adrift. They sent a signal, but no signal was returned, and there was no movement or any signs of life. When Captain Morehouse sent his first mate, Oliver Devoe, across the sea in a small boat, no one aboard the Dei Gratia could have imagined that they were rowing towards one of the greatest maritime mysteries in history. The name on the stern read Mary Celeste. The boarding party climbed aboard cautiously. It was eerily quiet, their boots echoing across the deck. They were calling out into cabins, but no voice answered. What they discovered was unsettling. There wasn't a soul on board. After searching around the ship, they could see there was no sign of any disturbance, no overturned furniture, and nothing appeared to be out of the ordinary. The cargo consisted of industrial alcohol. There were more than 1,701 barrels which remained intact in the hold. The crew's belongings appeared to be undisturbed. The food stores were full, and their casks held enough water to last for months. What they did notice was that the ship's single lifeboat was missing. Also missing was the captain, his wife, and their 2-year-old daughter, and 7 crew members. The last entry in the book was dated 25th of November. That was 10 days earlier. It recorded the ship's position near the Santa Maria Island in the Azores. But now the vessel had floated 400 nautical miles beyond that point. The compass glass was shattered, which could reveal why the ship had lost its course. When searching the engine room, the pumps were partially disassembled. About 3.5 foot of water lay in the hold, not unusual for a ship her size. It was a ship that appeared to have been deliberately abandoned, and no one aboard the Dei Gratia could answer the question forming in every mind. Why would an experienced captain leave a seaworthy vessel in the middle of the Atlantic? Benjamin Spooner Briggs was the captain of the Mary Celeste, and he was a very experienced sailor and certainly not reckless. Briggs came from generations of seafarers, deeply religious, principled and respected. He was known for his calm judgment and careful command. When he accepted leadership of the Mary Celeste voyage to Genoa, he considered it safe enough to bring his wife, Sarah Elizabeth Briggs, and their young daughter, Sophia Matilda Briggs, on board. He left his young son behind with family in New England. That detail alone has haunted historians for over 150 years. Fraud was a consideration, but a man planning fraud does not leave a child behind. Also, a man plotting mutiny does not bring his family along with him. Briggs had carefully selected his crew, all experienced sailors from Germany and New York. The first mate had served under him before. There were no known problems and no record of violent storms which could have forced everyone to abandon ship, and yet everyone aboard had vanished without a trace. Soon after the Mary Celeste was sailed into Gibraltar, an official inquiry began, and foul play was suspected. He theorised mutiny, piracy and insurance fraud, and even murder. One of the investigators, John Austin, reported small cuts in the bow. Suspicious stains were closely examined, initially thought to be blood. but this was later disproven. Divers inspected the hull and found that all marks were consistent with natural wear and tear. There were no weapons found and no valuables were missing, which would rule out robbery. There was no official verdict or explanation as to what happened to the Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste returned to service after the inquiry. She sailed for several more years, but several captains who later commanded the Mary Celeste reported feeling a deep sense of unease aboard, and her reputation as a cursed vessel grew. Her captains and crew often reported strange mishaps, unexplained accidents, and even deaths occurring on board. Captain Gilman Parker deliberately wrecked the Mary Celeste off the coast of Haiti in 1885 in an attempt to defraud the insurance. He later confided in a fellow sailor that he had experienced an overwhelming presence aboard the vessel, one that he couldn't shake, as though the ship itself was haunted by the souls of its lost crew. The legend of the Mary Celeste was just beginning. One of the many theories involves the cargo. The industrial alcohol that was in the hold could have emitted explosive fumes. If vapours seeped from the damaged barrels, if pressure built in the hold, a sudden ignition could have created a powerful blast wave. Not a fireball of destruction, but a shock strong enough to frighten even the most seasoned captain. In 2006, chemist Andrea Sella created such a scenario. The experiment showed that alcohol vapours could explode dramatically without leaving scorch marks. Could Briggs have heard a terrifying rumble? Could he have smelt strong fumes and feared a destructive explosion? Perhaps he ordered a temporary evacuation into the lifeboat, intending to tow behind the ship until danger had passed. And perhaps the tow line snapped where they could only watch helplessly as the ship moved away into the distance. The lifeboat, overloaded and exposed, may have perished in the Atlantic Ocean. Although this cannot be proven, it is one possibility. One particularly eerie incident occurred in 1879 when a British ship captain, John Austin, encountered the Mary Celeste while passing through the Strait of Gibraltar. He reported seeing the ship's sails illuminated in an unnatural way, even though the sun had long since set. As his ship drew nearer, he and his crew watched in horror as the Mary Celeste appeared to vanish into thin air, leaving behind only a faint outline in the mist. Austin's account was met with disbelief, but this incident added to the growing legend of the cursed ship. In 1884, a young writer named Arthur Conan Doyle published a fictionalised account of the Mary Celeste, a spelling mistake that is still known to this day, as the ship was actually called the Mary Celeste. The story was so convincing that many people now believe it to be the truth, cementing the ship's ghostly reputation. Then came the Abel Fosdick papers in 1913, published by the Strand magazine, purporting to be the diary of a lost passenger. The document described a wild scene in which the crew drowned after a deck collapse. An account riddled with inaccuracies, historians quickly exposed it as a hoax. Sailors speak often as the sea, taking what it wants: storms, men, and sometimes explanations. Yet the Mary Celeste felt different. There was no sign she'd been claimed by violence or weather. She was abandoned deliberately, but with care, and whatever prompted that choice left not a single trace. What makes the Mary Celeste story so enduring is not just the unanswered questions, but the persistent sense of something unnatural occurred on that ship.